Hi, I'm Russ Gooberman. I just woke up out of a haze and found myself on a podcast, so I guess I'll do it.
Yeah, sorry to kind of wake you up. I just gave you a nudge and thought this guy looks like he could probably do a podcast.
Yeah, and I see you on my screen, Jeff, so well done hacking into my
Yeah,
system.
I'm pretty good at this stuff. It's all about finding out how to do this stuff on the dark web. So I'm pretty good at figuring all that out. Russ, you are in LA, transplant from New York. We were talking before, kind of a little bit of a different vibe going from Brooklyn to LA, correct?
It is. I always kind of looked at myself as an A-type personality who cultivated really wanting to be a B-type and a little bit more laid back. And so I've surrounded myself in the environment to try to make that possible.
There you go. So again, you're a guy. I know your background you mentioned is an improv. Have you done any acting? And if so, is there anything we've seen you in?
I do commercial acting actively, and a lot of people say that I look sort of generally familiar to them because Lord knows I've done a bunch of, I don't know, viral videos and sketch and commercials. And, there's, if, if you've seen the music video Peanut Butter Jelly by Galantis, which was all the rage, Lord knows, like 7, 8 years ago or something like that. I play the supermarket manager in the supermarket where everyone has their clothes explode and does alien dances in the supermarket. If you haven't seen it, look it up.
So if you haven't seen it, you're probably like, "What is this guy talking about?" But
Mhm.
that sounds awesome. Okay, so what's your favorite kind of commercial or real type role that you've done?
My favorite it was for Paramount Network. I mean, it was a car insurance commercial, but because it was for Paramount Classics, they filmed it as like an old B movie from the 50s. So it was in black and white. And I played a scientist who accidentally turned himself into a bug, AKA Jeff Goldblum. So I had a giant bug ant head, fly head on my head for, a 10-hour day of shooting with a lab coat and all this stuff. And people were escorting me around because like they couldn't take it off in between takes. It was kind of too much to take it off. So I was just kind of this Zen experience of living inside the thing, like sweating profusely. Production girls like leading me to my chair and leading me from one place to another. It was super fun, and also got to co-star in that with Jacqueline Fontaine, who's this like tremendously talented singer and operatic person.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I so the craziest acting story that I have is kind of similar. I was helping a friend he was in film school and he made a short film about we called it like Murderer's Ball or something. It was about a guy that he shoots a guy dead. He's basically an assassin and he's caught by a kid that is wanting to follow in his footsteps, like right there on the spot. And so they literally have a conversation, like, and it's meant to be a little humorous, where you've got the dead body just laying there, and they even like sit on the dead body at one point, start like kind of like it's a bench, and they start talking about what it's like to be an assassin and the different life. Well, I was the dead body,
Oh,
and
amazing.
we filmed it in downtown St. Louis, which is where I'm at, and it was about 30 degrees outside. And so there's literally, it might have been, I think it was like maybe a 15-minute movie, but I had to be on the ground for a good 4 hours. And so in between takes, I would just kind of pick my arms up and I'd hug myself and I would shake like crazy because it was so cold. And I had people would like wrap blankets around me and I'd still just lay there in the same spot because they didn't want me to move. And it was brutal having to do that. But
That's some method stuff right there, Jeff.
it
You
it
really
was.
sacrificed for your art.
I did. Well, and it was funny because at one point, the director was like, Jeff, you want to get up, man, and walk around, and I'm like, nope, because I'm not going to be in the same spot. So we got to keep it the same.
I
And
might start
they
breathing too hard during the dead body part.
exactly. And so yeah, it was kind of crazy, like, laying there as still as I could, and then we hear cut, and then I'm like, oh, give me the blankets. Like it was not easy, but it was fun to do. And again, the final product turned out great. So I was very happy to do it.
If they had awards for that, you would win one for
That
corpsing.
I think my mom gave me an award after that, and I deserved it. So, Russ, I wanted to ask you, speaking of acting, we mentioned you do improv and you have a very active Instagram. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, I teach improv at what is technically LA's oldest and longest running improv theater. It's called the LA Connection in Burbank. It's a short form theater. So if you're in improv, there's short form and long form. Short form is more like a who's line setup where you have a host introducing games, players play the games. Long form, which I've done the majority of in my improv career, is more like you're putting on a play in front of an audience. You just haven't written it yet, and so you write it in front of them in real time. And because a lot of my experiences at places like Second City and IO, I have a very like their philosophies are sort of very grounded and acting based, even though it's improv comedy. A lot of it is just dramatic acting with an absurd premise. That's kind of how it ends up. So this is how I teach my short form. So I go, even if it's 60 seconds before the game gets cut, I want a real slice of life. And so we work on that kind of stuff and do shows every Saturday night. I teach every Sunday. And then, yeah, on Instagram, I talk a lot about theory and stuff like that.
That's fantastic. So I always say that in the business world could learn a lot from improv, and uh, something I've kind of said my whole life is, what's the number one rule of improv? You never say no, right?
Mhm.
It's always like yes and. And so I have brought that into my life. There's a lot of times when we're in a meeting and somebody will shoot something down, and then I'll talk to them after and say, "Hey, you know what? Actually, the better way to say this or better way to do this," and I teach them about what the number one rule of improv is. So it's funny how, my slight improv background, not nearly as much as yours, but I do have some background. I did it a lot in high school and a little bit in college, and it really has kind of filtered into my adult life, even though I'm doing nothing with acting in my life, except I guess podcasting is kind of in that realm in the
It,
creative world.
it's in the realm, but yeah, we call it human training because really what you're doing is you're learning to listen, read body language, acknowledge subtle cues, read subtext. This is very useful in lots of things when you're not professionally trying to make people laugh on stage. There are other avenues for this
That's
stuff.
right.
Yeah.
So, what's your favorite improv game to play?
The favorite short form game of mine is called Scripts, which is a very kind of erudite improv teacher game that I would love, where we take a great work, we give the audience a choice of three or four great works. So, some Shakespeare, some play by Oscar Wilde, Death of a Salesman, and the audience picks a work. There are two players. There's a reader and an improviser. You might have seen this stuff kind of goes viral sometimes on the internet as improviser versus actor. This is a
Mhm.
game of scripts. And so the reader starts reading from a page selected by the audience and the work they picked out. And then the improviser, who, hasn't memorized whatever great work this is, they have to make it make sense. They have to improvise their way through a scene where their scene partner probably not going to answer any of their questions or help them to understand more about what's going on. They're just going to do whatever they do, and the improviser has to roll with it and backfill and make it make sense. And it's just one of the reasons I love it is it's kind of improv on hard mode. It's like, what do you do if you're improvising with a very stubborn, unhelpful scene partner? So it makes ordinary improv a lot easier if you get good at scripts. But then there are also these kind of magical moments where I have one player on my advanced group who I host their show, who he weirdly makes this psychic connection with the text when he plays scripts, and he starts asking the book questions, and then the book will start answering his questions, even though it violates like the principles of how we teach to do it. But he dials in so hard to the wavelength of the work that he actually, it seems like he engages in a real conversation in the middle of the scene. It's crazy to watch.
That sounds awesome. So I'm guessing you could see some of this on your Instagram, correct?
You can, yeah, a bunch of games, some show clips, a lot of me philosophizing about improv and life. Yeah, this is what we do.
That's great. Again, that's Instagram for anyone interested, and I'll throw the link in the show notes as well. But that is Russ Gooberman, Gooberman. So check that out if you're interested. Even if you're not an actor or an improv, it's somebody who's interested in improv. Again, like I said, there's a lot that relate to real life. So, and plus, who doesn't want to have a good laugh? There's always good stuff that you can find. Some of the best comedy on TV. You mentioned Whose Lines It Anyway. Some of the best moments I've ever seen in comedy TV has been on that show. So I'm sure you've got plenty of good stuff on your Instagram as well.
Some geniuses on that show, Wayne Brady, Colin Mockery. These guys are outrageously talented.
Can I just say,
yeah.
I really, truly believe Wayne Brady is the greatest entertainer of our time.
It's unbelievable what he can do with an improvised song. It's, there are plenty of musical improv shows, but there are very few people that rise to the level of, wait, did he just make that up? Is that a real song? Because that's how it comes across.
I remember when he was on The Masked Singer, and he won that year. And I don't watch that show, but when I realized, somebody showed me a clip, they're like, "This is Wayne Brady, right?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And there's literally one where I can't remember who he's doing. It might be a Sam Cooke song, and he just starts rapping about being on The Masked Singer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, that is clearly improv. So that is clearly Wayne Brady. And all the judges were like, oh, no one's that talented except Jamie Foxx. And I'm like, you're forgetting about the greatest entertainer of our time.
Yep. Jamie Foxx is a great musical talent. I don't know that he would improvise to that level, but.
Yep, exactly. All Wayne Brady. So we mentioned yes and. So we're going to get into some yes and. We're going to do our topic generator with Russ.
Let's go.
We got some good stuff coming, hopefully. The fictional character you'd never want as a roommate. That's an interesting one. Okay. A fictional character you'd never want as a roommate. Is anyone coming to mind for you, Russ?
I will just say, as a sort of preface and a disclaimer, I have 3 small children. So whatever personal space you think that you have that might be violated by a fictional roommate, it's already happened. It happens every day. I have people climbing on my head. I have no personal space. My wants and needs don't matter in the context of my kids. So I feel like, as somebody who was an introvert and lived in my own apartment for a very long time and relished my alone time, I have been violently disabused of all of that stuff over the last 9 years. So I could take it. I mean, go ahead. Who can we even come up with? I mean, I'm sure we could, somebody.
Yeah, this is a hard one for me because I'm, unlike you, I'm actually an extrovert.
Mhm.
And I try to listen, I could be negative, don't get me wrong, but I try to find the positive in most people. And so, and I'll say there's some people that I'm like, yeah, I just don't think I could ever live with that person. But I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of like Steve Urkel probably comes to mind, right? Because he was always the annoying neighbor. But I'm like, he also
I think you're
created
fine.
these insane inventions, right? That could help around the house.
And as long as he doesn't have a crush on you, I think you're fine. Like,
Yes.
That was most of the annoyingness of Steve Urkel, was that just him wanting to be with Laura.
Yeah. Laura. Yeah. Got any cheese? Okay. I can think of one, I think. A character that I was not a fan of. Did you watch Ted Lasso?
Not all of it, but I've seen it.
Okay, so the coach that is kind of hit and miss throughout the series.
Is this the bearded guy?
No, Beardy Guy's great. That's Coach Beard, literally is his name.
So Coach
And
Beard, by the way, in real life is like a longtime famous improviser, by the way.
yes, yes, I knew that. Brendan something, I
Mhm.
believe. Brendan Hunt, I
I
believe his
think
name
that's
is.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some of the stuff he's done, and yeah, he's fantastic. But no, there's a character on there named Nathan that
Mhm.
is starts off as like kind of a little puppy, like a very, very introverted, doesn't know how to talk to people. But then over time, he starts gaining confidence throughout the show. And by season 3, he has like completely turned on everyone, thinks he's God's gift to soccer, and kind of becomes a douche. And so that's the only guy I can think of that I'm like, man, people that have like the self-inflated ego kind of drive me crazy. So that's probably one guy I would say, yeah, I don't think I'd want to live with him because that would probably
Sure.
get annoying after a while.
I agree with that. And I mean, it depends on how far you're opening up the fictional character idea. Like I wouldn't want to be roommates with Pinhead from the Hellraiser series who comes out of a puzzle box and takes you to a world of torture, but that's kind of low-hanging fruit, I guess, for
Right.
this game.
Yep. And I'm trying to think too, because I'm like, yeah, I mean, Jason from the Friday the 13th franchise. I don't want a guy hacking me up in my sleep, but I don't know if that's really the point here.
I think if we're going for something like a little bit more subtle, I Ace Ventura seems like a terrible roommate.
Yeah.
Uh,
You'd
just
have
because of
pets
all the
everywhere.
animals everywhere, lack of
Yeah.
volume control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably a good one. Have you ever had? I mean, you said you've lived alone. Obviously, kids are terrible roommates. Trust me, I know. I'm a father myself. But have you ever had a really bad roommate?
I don't think I've been very, very lucky. I was housed with a bunch of my friends in college. We all chose to live together. And then I basically had a live-in girlfriend after I moved out. And after we broke up, I had my own place. The worst roommate I ever had was in college when I shared a suite with some of my best friends. I started dating a girl who was one of the housemates, and then we broke up and we were still living together.
Oh,
And that is toxic. That's a horrible situation. Just like watching her bringing dudes back to her room in the suite, and we still have feelings, and we're every moment of your life is like a little mini revenge against somebody who lives 6 feet down. That was pretty terrible.
yeah. I don't
She's a
know if
lovely person though, but
that would not work for me either. I always have like when I broke up with a girl, it was always like kind of had those like lingering feelings. And I remember I had a girlfriend that lived down the street from me that every now and then I'd drive by her house and I would see a car parked in front of her house that I didn't recognize. And the first thought in my head is, she's already moved on. What is this?
yes.
And it's like I couldn't imagine if she was still in the same apartment as me.
And then you hate yourself for having those thoughts, even of like, why can't I gotta move on?
Yeah,
Can't
you
think
broke
about
up with her, you
it.
dummy.
Uh, just more opportunities to torture yourself and find reasons to pass that house on the way to the supermarket.
Exactly. Oh, I'm not gonna go right out of here because that direction takes me closer. I'm gonna go down the street and see if anyone's
Yeah.
there. And at the same time, it's like could have been a friend. It could have been somebody at the other neighbor's house, but
Mhm.
you're still gonna torture yourself because sometimes that's what you want to do.
It's that little voice in your head that's like, oh, let's just have a look. Let's get a little update and see what's going on with Carol. And then it's like, why did I do that? I don't want to
Yep.
know.
Yeah, I don't want to know what's going on with Carol. Move on from Carol. Come on, man.
God's sake, man. It was 18
Yeah,
months ago. Come on.
my worst roommate, I don't know if this counts, but was growing up, my brother.
That scans. It does. Yeah. That makes
Yeah, I mean, I love my brother and I always have, and we
older
got a great
brother.
relation. Older brother, yep,
Yeah.
10 years older.
Yep.
Yep. So it was literally, and he was a big wrestling fan. So there was literally times in my life where it was like, oh, there's this new wrestling move, Stone Cold Stunner or whatever, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna try it on Jeff. And so I go home from school and he'd surprise me and he'd, take me down right there at the door, and I'm just like, dude, you are too big for me, man. I can't fight you back.
Yeah. You were the crash test dummy.
I was. So yeah, he was not fun to live with. And the other thing he did too was so he lived in the basement, and we had three siblings. So we had six people in the house, both parents. And I'm not kidding. He would do that. And he says this to this day now. He'll admit it now. He would come upstairs, like I'd be playing video games. My sister would be playing piano. My sister would be up in her room watching TV. My mom would be cooking. And he would come up one by one and find a way to piss us all off. So like he'd come over and stand in front of my TV, and I'd be like, Stan, move. What are you doing? He's just like, what? I'm not hurting anything. I'm just standing here. And so I'd get all mad. Then he'd go over and he'd start turning the channel on my dad. And my dad would be like, I was watching that. And he'd do the same thing to everyone else, start playing the piano keys on my sister. And then he would go downstairs and we'd all start fighting. And it took us a long time to realize, wait a minute, why are we all mad at each other? Why are we always doing this every night? And Stan's the only one that's not here.
There's
and we're
an
like,
instigator in the family.
wait a minute. And we confronted him. He said he would never do something like that. Yeah, years later, he was in his 20s. He's like, oh yeah, I purposely used to do that to you guys. And I'm like, ugh,
That's
I
amazing.
feel bad for your wife and your kids.
That's amazing. I don't know if my 4-year-old is an instigator. He's definitely a terrible roommate just because, he'll wake up at like 6 a.m. and be making a bunch of noise, and him and his brother will be chasing each other around. Then he'll come upstairs and he'll like smack me on the face while I'm sleeping so that I can unlock a tablet that he can take downstairs. And then he'll try his hardest to be quiet. He's like, I just need a tablet, Daddy. And then he takes it and he goes. And then like 6 minutes later, he's like, I just need you to open the yogurt. Open the yogurt, Daddy. And then I do that and I'm trying to go back to sleep again. And then he 5 minutes later, he comes back. And then he's like, Julian won't let me use the remote. And I'm like, what happened? We've forgotten already that we're supposed to be quiet. And now I'm awake.
So were you a pretty young parent when you first had a child?
No, I was an older parent. I appreciate
Okay.
the compliment. We started this relatively later in life, and now with still 3 little kids. And as far as my wife is concerned, we're not finished, but that's a whole different story.
Yes, yeah, that's a whole other podcast episode
Yeah.
you and I could have.
Seriously.
Yeah, no, I was. It was odd. Yeah, so for me, I was still in my kind of, I don't want to say I was terribly young. I mean, I was 24 when I had my son, and yeah, there'd still be nights where I'd go out on Friday night and I'd be like, hey, honey, mind if I go out with the guys? And I'd take an Uber home, and I'd be pretty sauced, and I'd wake up the next day at 5 a.m. to a screaming child, and I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, this is terrible.
Yeah, it's the human hangover in personified.
Yep. So what's a challenge that maybe you had? You say you were an older parent. What was a challenge you had pretty early on?
Gosh, I don't know. There's just so much that you learn on the fly that nobody prepares you for.
Yep. I hear you for that. Well, and I'll say that, and maybe you're the same here. The advice I always give new parents, they always ask me, what's something that I should know that you didn't know? And I said, when people tell you that instincts will kick in, that is a very real thing. Like everybody would tell me when I tell them I'm so scared about having kids. Like I remember my dad, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? This kid's coming. I'm not ready. And he's like, you're never ready. He's like, I had 4 kids and I was the baby. And he's like, I wasn't ready for you. And I already had 3 kids at that point. So he's like, don't worry. When things happen, your instincts will kick in. They will take over. And I never believed that could be possible. And it for me, at least, it definitely was.
It's true, especially when you pull a dad save where like a child is teetering over the edge of a couch and you find your arm just like shooting out and cupping the head. And you're like, ha ha. But yeah, the thing that surprised me the most is once the second child and the third child came along, things get a little bit less precious. Like when you have the first child, everything is a holy occasion and precious. And like, I remember how nervous I was driving my daughter home for the first time out of the hospital, and the pristine baby car seat and driving at like 4 miles an hour all the way home because I was afraid to be driving. By the time the second kid was born, it was the same car seat. So it was like 2 and change years old and beat up and dirty. And we threw the infant in there. I'm like, all right, great, let's go. We did it. We just drive home. And I get why, different. So as I was an only child, but I get why like the older and the middle and the younger have vastly different experiences, even with the same parents growing up, because
Yep.
it is like that. It's just like, all right, rub some dirt on it, it's fine, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that was definitely the experience in my family. My brother and 2 sisters came before me, and it's so funny to talk to my brother about my experience with my dad, because my dad, was a little younger, obviously a lot younger, when he had my brother, and he was angry about everything. Oh, he broke the toaster. Oh, he kicked this thing on the stairs and it shattered a million pieces. By the time I came around and I was breaking stuff, my dad I would just hear him yell, "Mary, I think Jeff broke something again." And that was it. Never got yelled at, never got in trouble. By that time, he was checked out.
Yeah, that's called surrender. Absolutely. You just give up. The tide is too much. And you're like, all
Yep.
right. And it's like, as a person living alone in their own apartment, I never experienced like just walking from here to the kitchen. There might be 9 things I need to pick up and bus and move out of the way because it's just a tornado of chaos and garbage, like constantly. And so it's always a losing battle. You'll never win, but you just subconsciously are just like, okay, that goes in this and then pick
Yep.
that, throw that out. And you could do that all day and you wouldn't make a dent.
Yep. And I'll say the other thing kind of in that realm is, when I had a baby, for me it's like I'm always careful on watching what's out. I'm a pretty clean person, but we all do it. You get home from a late night or maybe you're even getting home from work and you're tired and you don't want to pick up. And so, you're like, okay, I'm going to walk to the kitchen. And so you're not doing it, you're doing it subconsciously. And you're like, oh, that jacket is on the floor. My shoes are there. And you kind of know, step over this stuff. When you have a baby and you're carrying it, that stuff can't be on the floor because your attention is not on what's on the floor. So for me, it was just a little thing where it's like, I'm carrying this baby, I'm going to the bedroom. There needs to be a clean path, and again, I'm always been clean, but it's like that you got to be even more careful about what you have out because if you trip and you're holding the baby, I mean, you kind of mentioned it earlier, the sticking the arm out and catching them. You're more like, I'm going to protect this baby at my cost.
Oh,
Like
100%. You go
I'm going to
down.
drill my head into the wall if I have to.
You got to take all the damage. The baby has fewer hit points than you.
That's true.
Yeah, just yesterday, my whole family heard me scream downstairs. I was like, ah! And they're like, what happened? I was like, Lego, my foot.
Yes.
Got
So
me.
right before I moved out of my mom's house, obviously me being the youngest, my siblings all had kids before me, and so before I moved out of the house, my mom was always watching all the grandkids all day, and so I would literally come home, or I'd come downstairs and I have an 8 a.m. class or whatever, and so I'd be getting ready to go, and then I'd step on a doll, then I'd step on a Lego, and I'd just be like, "Oh my god, I need to get the hell out of here." And I told myself then, "You're never having kids because of this." Yeah, and then
Seriously.
here
Those
we are 10 years later, and I did the same thing.
You did it. Those old Warner Brothers cartoons with the baby in them, or the Tom and Jerry stuff. Like, the lives of those writers as a parent. You get it. Of like the baby just walks through all of the needles and dynamite and it's fine, and then some poor cat has to be like frantically picking stuff up and making the baby safe and hurting themselves. And I was like,
That
oh,
was what was the Animaniacs one? Mindy, right? That was the baby, and the dog was always
mm-hmm.
protecting her, and like the whole
Destroying
show
itself. Yeah.
whole show was about her just like going on a crazy adventure, and the dog had to try and chase her down. Like I lived that life. I know what that's like.
100%.
The craziest was so you mentioned you're in LA. I don't know if you've ever been to a crowded situation like this, but we went to so at a short period I lived in Dallas when my son was 1, and he was in a stroller, And so we're pushing the stroller, and we went to the Texas State Fair, which, for those who have never been to the Texas State Fair, it is madness. It is the crowdest area. And I've been to Disney World, I've been to Universal. It is the crowdest little spot I have ever seen. And so there was literally one point where I'm walking behind my wife and she's pushing the stroller. And I turn around and look at something. I turn back and she is gone. Sea of people, gone. It took me a good 20 minutes to find her. And I started thinking, I'm like, if she lets go of that stroller, she's losing the stroller. Like, this is terrifying.
Just gets whisked away in the waves of humanity.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, as an introvert, I used to have a sort of built-in anxiety over huge crowded places and would avoid them. And the therapy that helped me the most with that was playing Pokemon Go. Because Pokemon Go incentivizes you to go to crowded places because that's where the Pokemon spawn. And so, even at Comic-Con, which and it's weird. It's like, I've been to a bunch of Comic-Cons. I only feel comfortable when I'm working, like if I'm doing a show or something like that, then I'm like, all right, I have a purpose. If I'm just walking around trying to enjoy myself and it's too crowded, I can't. But the work thing applies. If there's like a Snorlax that I can see on the map, I'm like, all right, well, I'm doing something, so I can ignore the fact that I'm surrounded by tens of thousands of people right now.
I am really interested by the fact, and I know that you're not alone in this, but I'm interested in the fact that you're an improv actor, so you obviously have to be around a lot of people, yet
Mhm.
you consider yourself an introvert. That has to
Completely.
be a little odd for you.
Yeah, and for me, socializing has always been easier with some additional structure. So like a board game or going bowling or, working on a group project or doing a podcast or being on a show, because then it's like there's a structure. You can practice at being good at this thing. Um, yeah, but especially like, look, my kind of introvert parties are like 3 or maybe max 4 of my close friends hanging out who I feel comfortable with and shooting the shit. Once it gets to like 15 people and there's no structure, it feels weird to me. Absolutely. It's hard for and again, usually what I'll do is if I'm a host, I'll be bringing drinks around or like facilitating people and making sure everyone's fine because I have something to do.
Right.
Without that, I get a little bit anxious. And it's because like, yeah, the doing improv more than I should be for the last 15 plus years. I'm very good in social situations. Like I'm good at listening and following a story and finding the empty parts of conversation and all that stuff. But I'm aware that it's a learned skill and it's not something that I enjoy naturally, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. Yeah, I mean, I'll say that. I mean, I totally get that. Like, I remember I had a buddy in high school and college that was an introvert, and but he had his own place, and he's like, "Man, I feel like I should be having parties, right? Like, I got my own place here." And I'm like, "Well, you don't have to. Like, it's not. You don't have to entertain." And so he's like, "But I want to invite our friends over and like, have a party." And I'm like, if you want to host it here, I'll be your host. And so it was literally like he opened up his doors to our friends, but I was the one that was like, getting drinks for people and like being like, hey, I ordered pizza and hey, I got this party game we could play. And so it was just funny because everybody's like, do you live here with Mike? And I'm like, no, I just volunteered to be his host because he
Just
didn't
Mike's
want to do
concierge. Yeah. An extreme example of this was Robin Williams, who you would think was an extrovert because he's entertaining everyone on set when the cameras go off. But from a lot of first and second hand witnesses, this would really drain him. Like he would dump all of his energy on stage or on set. And then as soon as he had a moment to himself, he just kind of was like a very quiet, reserved, just needing his recharge time, which is a thing for introverts of like needing your alone time to recharge. And he desperately needed that but he also obviously loved people and, was huge philanthropic guy and worked with the homeless and did all these amazing things. and expended every last bit of energy that he had on a thing that was performative so that he could go back and be a very quiet person in his like personal life.
Yeah, no, I get that 100%. My mom honestly is kind of like that. She's somebody that she likes to entertain people, she likes to cook for people, and then I know like I used to see it as a kid, like my aunts and uncles, everybody would leave and it was just kind of this like release of like and she could just kind of sit back and be like, "Thank God it's over." Like I enjoyed that, but now I get to rest and recharge.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's there are quite a few performers who are that. I mean, obviously there are a lot who are natural extroverts and they have just find it easy to relate to people and they like being on set and stuff like that. And then there's the I don't know. I imagine like Benedict Cumberbatch is like this. He's like this superly highly intellectual. He's great at his craft, and then he probably just like shuts it all off the moment that, that he's done working. You know.
yeah, my what's funny is, my wife is obsessed with Ryan Reynolds,
Hmm.
which, which woman isn't? And she's always just like, "Oh, he'd be so much fun to hang out with." And I'm like, "You're probably right. He probably is." But I'm also like, "Do you think that he is just on all the time?" I'm like, "I'm sure that when in behind closed doors, him and Blake Lively just sometimes probably sit there without saying a word because they're so exhausted from
Hmm.
having to put all that out into the public."
Totally. And this is a thing, I have the most microscopic version of this, which is that somebody I might see on the street has seen me in a show or in a commercial or something like that. And it's like you feel the pressure to be on because you're interacting with a fan. And so you have to summon that. And it's like for people who are legitimately celebrities who just all the time, whoever they come across expects them to be the persona, that can be really exhausting, I'm sure. Like for me, it's exciting because it's rare. And I'm just like, yes, you remember that show. Let's talk about it. And then the energy comes. Um,
Well, next time somebody recognizes, would be like, "You were on that really weird podcast with that random St.
yeah,
Louis guy."
I don't know how I ended up there. What happened?
That's
Woke up.
great. So Russ, let me ask you, what do you got coming up for us? Anything people can look forward to on your Instagrams, socials, or any shows or anything coming up in LA?
Sure, all of the above. I'm going to be doing a workshop and performing at the first ever Improv Con San Diego, which is happening end of August, like August 20th to 23rd. So if you happen to be there and looking to immerse yourself in improv, I'll be around. I got a few commercials coming out. There's a Bet 365 one where I play a very annoying neighbor. I get that a lot, that kind of role. And then I just filmed another one for some email assistant where I was playing William Shakespeare, and they had me in the thing, and I got to use all of my 17th century swear words like gadzooks and things like that. So
That's great.
that was a tremendous amount of fun. And yeah, if you are in the Southern California area, I'm on the longest running genre improv show in LA, which is called Drunkards and Dragons, which is kind of what it sounds like. It's like a Monty Python esque medieval improv show. We're all in medieval garb, and the audience rolls a big 20-sided die to determine like what happens in scenes. So that's really fun.
It's awesome.
And yeah, check out the LA Connection where I work and host Who's Line shows every Saturday night.
That's fantastic. Can that be seen streamed online or anything like that?
The LAC at one point it had a Twitch, and I think the Twitch got banned. There's some story previous to my existence, so they don't live stream shows anymore. But we do, we post clips and things on the Instagram. Their Instagram is LA Connection Theater, so you can follow the theater there.
Awesome. I will do that. And I did think of one more bad roommate, by the way.
Who's that?
And I think this kind of fits perfectly. Ned Flanders.
Oh yeah,
I
the holier than thou for sure.
Yeah, like I don't get me wrong, I love the character, but just, and like I remember certain scenes where he goes in and wakes up the boys at 5 a.m. to go pray. And I'm
Mhm.
just like, no, no, you will not be waking me up at 5 a.m. for that, and he's always just so happy and cheery. And it's just like, there's that one episode where he loses it.
Yeah,
And
which we
it's
all
like
love.
I
Yeah.
would Yeah, and I was like, I would need more of that from him. Not any there's no one in this world that's as happy as Ned Flanders.
The worst part of Ned Flanders is he grins through all of the passive aggressiveness where he's trying to change your behavior with a smile and going, yeah, wouldn't it be better if you weren't such a heathen? You know, that like it's like,
Yeah,
I
right.
hate you. Say what you mean, Flanders. Damn it.
Yep. Oakley dokley do.
Mm.
All right. Well, this has been Russ Gooberman. Russ, it has been a blast talking with you. Thank you very much for coming on. Again, share any of your personal social media channels that people can find you.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me on. I appreciate you porting me into your conversations about nothing. Yeah, just the Instagram would be the main one, which is just find my name. It's spelled the way it sounds. It is not a stage name. It's Gooberman. Gooberman. I've lived with it my whole life. I'm trying to make something out of it.
I'm sure you had the nickname Goober or Gooberman growing up, right?
So many. Goober guy, Sir Goobs a lot. So many nicknames.
Fun fact, and then we can close on this, is when I was in high school, Goober was my nickname.
Oh, amazing.
Welcome yes, it was because I played hockey and I apparently skated like a goober in high school. So that's what they called me.
Welcome to the club, brother.
Happy to be part of the club. Glad I'm finally talking to the president.
Yeah, exactly. I did. I once convinced a school bus full of middle school children once that my parents owned the Goobers Candy Corporation because I brought a little box of them in, and they're like, "It's true."
That's hilarious. I used to tell people that my dad owned Ponderosa. I don't know if you have Ponderosas out there. I don't know if they're still around, but it used to be a buffet. So
no, yeah, but it sounds sprawling and amazing.
When my dad went in for a childhood, what was called the parent-teacher conference, somebody said, "Oh, I love your restaurant," and he started laughing and like, "Let me guess, that's not really where you work." And he said, "No," and they're like, "Yeah, that's what Jeff tells everyone." All right, Russ, thank you very much. Pleasure talking with you. And I enjoyed the improv talk. We'll have to have you on again sometime.
All right, sounds great, Jeff. Thanks again.
Thank you. The Pondcast, conversations that go nowhere. Produced by Jeff Ponder. Executive produced by Jeff Ponder. Music by Loud C. Smith. Talent booking by Jeff Ponder. Engineering and mixing by Jeff Ponder. A special thanks goes out to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Remember to rate and review the Pondcast, Conversations That Go Nowhere, just because you're a good person. If you're a bad person, you can get some heaven points by rating and reviewing. It's a win-win. Follow the Pondcast on all social media channels with the profile handle @PondcastConvos. Thanks for listening.